Okay, we're rolling. We're doing Taster's List featuring Bitter Feminist. Take two on my mark. On three, two, one, pause.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another exciting show with the Tasters List. I am Justice, and tonight we're going to be featuring one of our brands called Bitter Feminist, and there's Kashaka, which is a Brazilian rum. I can't wait to introduce this to you guys. We're also going to be introducing a new drink, as we always do, created by our very own ice cold elements. It's called Black Cherry Kiss. So stick around so you can see how that's made, and you can make it for yourself. So again, I have Lan Ray and Abby Ariola with us today. Thank you, ladies, for joining me. I'm so excited about this.
Thank you for having
Excited to
us.
be here.
All right. So let's dive right in. I know everyone watching is curious about number one, the name, and what the heck is a kashaka. So maybe I'll let you guys dive right in and kind of let us know where did the name come from. Tell us a little bit more about your brand.
All right, sis, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, my name is Abby, and I am one of the founders of Bitter Feminist Kashasa. And Lanre is our historian, and she will tell you, and she always reminds me that, it came about from a group chat with several friends, and we were just talking about different issues and also just, sharing memes, but really telling stories about women. And I think at one point there was a comment was made about a woman who was vocal and advocated for other women, and she was labeled a bit of feminist. And I think at that point it was just a, you know what, sick and tired of this, And I was like, actually, I like the name Bitter Feminist. It sounds really good as either a rock band, which we decided not to, but
All
or
right.
a spirit brand, which we landed on. So that's really, I would say, where the seed was planted, and we began our
Mhm.
journey into developing a brand and really, considering, the name Bitter Feminist, not to, to symbolize more than anything else the idea of celebration. We wanted to be a brand that unapologetically celebrated the accomplishments of women past, present, and future. And we wanted to be a brand that really devoted, its time to finding and curating stories of historical women, or women of the present, and also women that we see that are just up and coming, emerging, amazing women leaders. We wanted to be a brand that focused on celebrating those, highlighting those, and really being a rallying point for just sharing stories and just celebrating each other's accomplishments. So I would say that was kind of the proverbial, I guess, snowball that started rolling down the hill as we really started our journey towards developing this brand.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And even
All right.
playing around with the name. Oh, sorry, just but playing around with the name, we
No.
thought
You're fine.
when my sister was like, yes, let's definitely call it that. I was like, yeah, sure. And then we're like, people are gonna have an interesting response to this name, and people still do, but it's been extremely interesting because many women, when they see it first, they're like, tell me about it. And it's like, okay, this represents me. And that's probably been the most exciting part about the name because when people hear the name, they're tickled. But then when they hear, the passion behind it, the impetus, the purpose, they get far more excited. And actually, even men get excited. And when we've told people, what's behind it, we get men saying, I need to tell this to my daughters, to my nieces, to
Yeah.
to all the women in their lives. And so that affirmed to us that this is definitely something that it strikes up a conversation, but it's like a necessary conversation to have. So that's the story behind the name, and it still tickles us today. But it is it is everything that we wanted to do with the brand.
Yep.
Exactly. And I was going to mention that ever since I met you guys, and the name itself is just the one thing, even before we met, that's just really stood out for me. And everyone I told about and still do tell about, I get that same response. They kind of wait like, is that a good or bad? They don't know how to react.
Right,
But then if you look at the depth,
right.
yeah, it's like a little bit of confusion. But
Yeah.
feminism isn't just a female thing. It is a
Right.
a way of thought and a philosophy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But anyone can
Absolutely.
be supportive of feminism. Your brand isn't
Yeah.
a feminist brand. It's just a name that actually gathers thought. I love that you guys encourage um, thought in your posts and things like that I see online. That's been a big thing. I see that a lot. I'm
Absolutely.
sure
Yep.
the audience
And
wants to
thank you.
know more about what a well, first, the name, they get the name. Okay, that's great. Tell us more about Kashasha.
Sure.
Okay.
So it's
Well,
interesting because, yeah, I can go. So cachaça actually originates from Brazil. It's a very like it's the national spirit of Brazil, and I discovered it when I made my first trip to visit Brazil many years ago. One of my best friends is from Brazil, and it was just, when I had cachaça for the very first time in the national cocktail, which is called a caipirinha. When I tasted the cachaça, it was just unlike any other spirit I'd ever had. And there was just something about it that really, for me, symbolized celebration. So, of course, when we started on this journey for our brand, it really was the spirit that we knew we wanted to feature. Now, cachaça is absolutely widely known outside the US. It's probably it's the third most popular spirit internationally with very little presence, but growing presence in the US. And in
Mhm.
essence, if I had to give a very simple description of cachaça, it is just distilled sugarcane juice. So it very simple, sugarcane is harvested, it's crushed, the juice is extracted, and then it is fermented and distilled, and then it's allowed to rest for a period of time. Our cachaça rests for 9 months, and the result is this amazing spirit that is light, it's floral. It has,
mhm.
nectar and melon notes to it, but you still get that sugar cane essence to it. You still taste a little bit of that sugar cane, but it's just nice, and it has, gives this nice warm experience. There's no harsh aftertaste to it. It's just a very smooth spirit that's very versatile. So that's cachaça. Now, cachaça is actually also closely related to rum, but the uh, manufacturing process is slightly different. Now, cachaça being just distilled from sugarcane juice, but rum primarily being a product that is manufactured after the cachaça, like sugarcane juice is boiled down and processed to make sugar. The molasses that remains is then used to create the rum. So that's really the difference between cachaça and rum. Cachaça is just made from the sugarcane juice, while the rum is a product of the derivative of sugarcane after it's gone through the sugar making process and leaves the molasses. So those are the two main
Mhm.
differences between the two spirits.
Interesting.
And
So
cachaça
again,
specifically, I think some of the rules, it's like it has
mhm.
to be 40%. So it's like at least 40%. And that would be, I think, one of the differences from maybe a vodka. So when you purchase vodkas, you're going to see a variety of strengths. But in order for this product to be considered cachaça, one, it has to be produced in Brazil. Secondly, it has to be at least 40%. So it's packing a punch, but ours in particular, it's such a smooth feel that you'll be enjoying it too much to be like, oh wait, there it is. But it's definitely a 40%
Right.
alcohol spirit.
Uh, right, and that's a good point. For the listeners out there and folks watching, um, countries can dictate standards for liquor. That's something I've become pretty educated on. Mexico, for example, tequilas aren't considered a tequila unless they're made in Mexico and use agave plants from a
Right.
certain region. The whole world has to follow that rule,
Yeah,
or else it is not an
Right.
official
exactly.
tequila. So
Right.
Cachaça seems to fall in that same category in Brazil, and that's a great note to take for those who are watching. Now, when you say
Yeah.
40%, is that 40% minimum 40% alcohol by volume, or or is
Right.
that
Minimum
some other?
40%
Okay,
alcohol by volume. Yeah. So
okay.
at
So
80
roughly
proof.
what, 80 proof? 80 proof, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
80
80
proof.
proof.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Hmm.
it's wait, it's no slouch. I'll put it that way. Even though it came from sugar, it packs a pretty powerful punch.
Yes, it
So
does.
It'll
what
have
made
you
you choose?
crawling if you're not
What?
careful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I think a lot of people want to know, about the name, about why you chose that name. I know you told us what the name means and where you got it from, but I think when you're picking a brand, the
Hmm.
name is key. So, um, can you tell us a little bit more about why the name Bitter Feminine?
So I can start with this one. So one of the most important parts about that name too is redemption. There's a redemptive quality in taking
Redemption?
something that tends to be treated as a pejorative and redeeming it to where now it becomes something that people really want to stand by and stand behind and represent. And so and in down to the image, the logo for Bitter Feminist, everything works together to one start with this idea. Yes, when people hear feminist, their first thought is these bitter women who are just angry. And then we also
Hmm.
wanted the logo to be something that made you rethink certain things. So when we're trying to come up with the logo, and we actually my sister primarily spoke to this artist, and this artist, it's like she came into our heads and spat out everything that we were thinking, because she used, first of all, the red lip. This is like such an image of femininity, but that lip has that snarl. And so it's like even the image is this femininity with a bit of that snarl, which, that's the piece of what it is that feminists do. And the snarl is about this recognition of things that need to be changed. um, and so all of it together was like it's a complete package where everything about it, from the name to the logo, it speaks to something where we take something that's regularly one way and we want to redeem it. So now Bitter Feminist is not about angry women, it's about women who made change, women who took steps to make change for the world. When we tell stories, we share stories about the women who invented or created a lot of the things that we rely on in our daily lives, and we didn't know that this was the work of women. And I think my sister's favorite story is about Bertha Benz. Sis, you want to share about Bertha?
Sure. So, just a little bit about my sister and I. We both have engineering backgrounds. My sister, electrical engineer, and I have my undergrad in mechanical engineering. And, as we started on this journey and as we started curating stories of different women, I came across the story of Bertha Benz. And the name should sound familiar because she is the wife of Carl Benz, who is the father of Mercedes Benz. And as I was reading through her story, I was just one amazed at just one of the history that wasn't shared about her. I discovered that it was her dowry that really started to found a lot of his activities in designing and coming up with the automotive vehicle, or what would be now known as the automotive vehicle. She was really a proponent, supported him, really was an advocate for him. Two, she was, he designed the vehicle. He really wasn't certain that the vehicle would work or it had marketability. So she woke up one morning, grabbed their sons and got in the car and drove the vehicle 60 miles. And she became the first person in history to drive a motorized vehicle 60 miles. So she actually completed the entire journey. So she broke that record. And on the way, she came up with creative solutions. As the car was breaking down, she came up with creative solutions to fix it. She was able to complete the journey. And it was because of that historic 60-mile journey, to prove to her husband that, the motorized vehicle was actually a valuable product and he needed to pursue it. Because of that, field testing of vehicles became standard in the industry. And also, she
Mm-hmm.
invented brake lining. So, reading that story, I was just impressed with her tenacity, her push, and her just her ingenuity. She really helped her husband design, the fan belt and just things, just really an amazing, innovative woman. But she wasn't allowed to
Right.
patent or have her name on the patent because at the time it was more relegated to men. It was the law of the time. But I wanted to know her story as an engineer. Here was someone who would have been a motivator for me to, keep breaking barriers. And so in reading that story, I really became even more and more passionate about finding and sharing stories and making sure that future engineers know all the amazing women that came before us who were inventors whose stories we never heard. Like I didn't know it was a woman
Hmm.
that invented windshield wipers in a car. So now when it rains and I turn my windshield wiper on, I celebrate the fact that it was invented by a woman. A woman invented the gas
I didn't
Absolutely.
furnace.
know
So
that.
when I'm cold, I'm thanking a woman. A woman invented home security
Yeah.
system. She holds the patent. A black woman. So it's like when I turn my alarm on at night, I'm so grateful for these women, and I become more passionate about sharing their
Hmm.
stories so that more women are just empowered to just keep pushing the barriers of innovation because of those that have come before us. So, and I wanted to say one
Yeah,
of the
definitely.
reasons why we have, here's the bottle. One of the reasons why we really like chose that lip because we wanted it to signify sharing stories and not being quiet, but really being, just even if it's in a gathering of two or three, it's so important to pass those stories along and really make sure that the stories of these amazing women don't go unheard. So yeah, it's one of the branding elements and very intentional items that we chose as we really sat down and figured out the branding for this, for the bottle. Like you said, the name, because we wanted a strong name that would be
Yeah.
memorable and a strong name that would spark conversation. But we also wanted a lip to signify raising your voice, speaking up. But also, I wanted a lip or a mark that could be recognized 3 aisles away. And this definitely it stands out. It stands out on store shelves. So we're very happy about that.
That
This
it
by
does.
far is one of the most recognizable bottles that I've ever seen. Like uh,
Right.
one of the things that tasters list is one of the areas we ask our tasters to give us feedback on, aside from the taste of the product, of course, is the look. Because, the first thing you're going to see when you go in the liquor store is this. You're not going to know what it tastes like. You're not going to know how it's going to make you feel,
Yeah,
how strong or how weak it might be. But
yeah.
like anything you see in stores, branding is key. Kudos to
Yeah.
you guys. I've not seen a package like this before with any brand, and I know a lot of brands. There's nothing like this in the marketplace. It's almost like a piece of artwork. I've gotten that kind of feedback
Yeah.
from people. Like it looks like some sort of Art Deco or just some sort of
Yep.
modernized type of art. Really cool stuff, right? Um, so
Yeah.
kudos to that, and it screams,
Thank
you
you.
know, feminist, bitter feminist. And I got to say this. I got to say this because I've known you guys for a while now, and you know, when you think bitter feminist, there's nothing bitter about you guys whatsoever. Um, you mentioned this product's made in Brazil. Are you guys from Brazil? Is that what encouraged that, or is it just it was a visit? I understand that, but do you have any roots there, or where y'all from?
We're from Nigeria, so I know Nigeria to Brazil, long trip, long, very long trip. But we are from Nigeria.
Definitely.
We, born and raised there. Well, actually, we grew up all
Yeah.
around the world, and our parents definitely gave us the opportunity to explore the world and to be
Hmm.
immersed in different cultures. And and as part of that, one of my best friends is actually from Brazil, and it was very interesting because I visited her in Brazil and one was just amazed with how beautiful the country is. I loved cachaça,
Mm.
but we were at a restaurant eating this meal, and it reminded me so much of meals that my mom cooked in Nigeria. And so I asked her, I was like, "Wait, I know this. This is so familiar." And when she gave me the name, I said, "That's exactly what we call it in Nigeria." And she looked at me. She's like, "Abby, don't you know that a lot of like Black Brazilians have roots in Africa, specifically Nigeria and specifically Yoruba, which is the tribe my sister and I are from." So it was just this culture shock to really realize that, there are like Yoruba elements in Brazil. So I felt at home. I was eating meals, eating food that my mom made in her kitchen, but in a whole different country because it was their food as well. So it was just really recognizing or appreciating the Yoruba influence on Brazilian culture. And, as I got to learn more, even Brazilian music and even just some, just the cultural elements in the country, like just recognizing that there were so many synergies there, I felt at home. So I think that closeness, that familiarity of
Hmm.
our cultures really endeared
Hmm.
me to
Hmm.
cachaça as a drink. And I share this story with my sister a lot. I've been to Brazil several times. I shared it enough with her that when she finally tasted a caipirinha, she's just really she
Yeah.
fell in love with it. She like absolutely fell in love with the drink as well. So
I did. Like it
Hmm.
was an easy selling point for me because and
Yeah.
that's the interesting part too with cachaça is that one, many people the first time they do encounter it is at a Brazilian steakhouse, usually with a
mhm.
caipirinha, which is the national cocktail for a country. I did not know countries had national cocktails, by the way. So this is already like, oh, this is amazing. And
Yeah.
so she totally sold me on it. So for my birthday, we celebrated it at a Brazilian steakhouse. I was like, I am getting a caipirinha, and it was amazing. And so lots of people, when we talk to them about the spirit, it's like, what's cachaça? And we start explaining it, and then we say, have you ever had a caipirinha? And the caipirinha was familiar to many, and it's like that's the spirit that is used to make the caipirinha. So it's yeah, definitely the connection to our roots was not lost on us, and I think that it definitely did endear us even more to cachaça and more excited
Yeah.
about helping. We really wanted to bring cachaça outside of the Brazilian steakhouse. It's sort of like you can encounter this in many more places. I think what I'm finding at different places that I'm going is now you are getting at least one cocktail on the menu that uses cachaça. So it's beginning to gain that hold. But where we want to separate ourselves is that you are drinking a spirit and there's a whole social movement, social thought behind the brand, and that is the most important part about our cachaça is that bitter feminist represents this celebration, this recognition of what women have contributed and for just for women to say, you know what, yeah, we've done some stuff, yeah, let's raise a
Hmm.
toast to this
Yeah.
and to
Yep.
encourage others who are coming forward with the stories to also see themselves in this light of you are incredible, you are valuable. Let's really celebrate that.
Yeah.
Wow,
And just to
that
add
is
on,
awesome,
well,
and I love that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say just to add on to Lannery's comment too, we really did, and back taking it back to the branding, we really did want, to bring cachaça out of the Brazilian restaurant familiarity and to do our bit to expand its reach and expand its fame. And so another, kind of component of, the intentionality behind our branding was, yes, we wanted it to be, an item that it was readily recognizable and could be picked up from the shelves, but we wanted it to be an item that people would want to have in their home bars, on their bar carts, because of the look of the bottle, because of the unique features of it, and because of the art deco, that pop modern look. We really wanted it to be something that people would want to have on, in their home bars, on their bar carts, because it's aesthetically pleasing and it has that element of celebration as well.
Right. So speaking of celebration, we're going to celebrate later on in the show. Of course, we're introducing a new drink that no one in the world has ever heard or seen before, the Black Cherry Kiss, using your product, of course. I'm excited. Our mixologist is on deck. We're going to have him come up later in the show and mix us up a Black Cherry Kiss and introduce it to the world. Actually, this is the first time you guys will be seeing this too, because even you didn't know
I
what we were
know.
making with this. So this is
At
definitely going to
all.
be a treat. So stick
At
around,
all.
definitely.
Yeah, that name
Right.
is super sexy
Um,
too, because again, it just works really well with the lippy. So I'm
hey,
Love
excited
look,
it.
for
we
it.
try to make it fit. We try to make it fit into the culture of whatever we're doing. And of
Yeah.
Love
course,
it.
Black Cherry Kiss can't have a kiss without lips. What else we drinking?
Right.
Right?
Cachaça. It has
What?
boom. It just
That's
kind of goes
love
together.
it.
Yeah. So so listen, I'm excited for you guys. Congratulations on entering into a space
Thank you.
that's number one, very competitive.
Yes.
Also mostly
Thank you.
male dominant. Um,
Yes.
but you guys are holding your own, and you have a very unique product. From the packaging, the taste, the look, the feel, the history, all of that actually is pretty amazing. Um, and I give kudos. Before this, I know you guys were into engineering and you totally different space, right? How does it feel now? I mean, like, tell me honestly, how do you feel actually being a player in this space? How does that make you guys feel?
uh, I can start. Definitely for
Yeah.
me, what it's done is it's changed my whole approach to uh, even alcohol consumption. I was definitely a beer gal, just straight up, just give me a beer and move on with my life. And I think uh, for a time, I mean, for a time, just the idea of a cocktail was very frou-frou. I think growing up in Nigeria, and really wrestling with identity, there were many things that I thought was housed under this is what a girl is, and all those things seemed to be outside of who I was. And so dealing with that, I tried a lot to distance myself from anything that was girly or frou-frou. And so I think growing up, cocktails fell in that category. Um, and I wouldn't drink anything unless maybe it sounded a little less frou-frou. So like I would totally do a martini, even if it was a tutti frutti martini. But it's like, but it's a martini though. And so what's really changed for me is one, what's really changed for me as we enter this space was it's like I was freed from this idea of a cocktail being frou-frou. The versatility of cachaça, the various cocktails that I've made using recipes that maybe typically might use a vodka or a tequila because it works very well in those recipes. It's just
Correct.
made me more
Yeah.
excited. It gets me more excited about those spirits, but also about how cachaça, works with it. And now when I go to bars, I'm just like, ooh, what can I try? And I get more excited. So it's changed my perspective on cocktail. I'm no longer doing this
Mm,
fight of no, it's frou-frou. I'm just like, whoa, first of all, this cachaça is no joke. Like you sip it and it's smooth.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
wait a little bit. You feel the rest of it, and
Yeah, just
but it's
wait.
it, it,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
it's a
it
fun
is 80 proof.
experience.
Let's-
Right,
exactly,
right.
it
But
is an
it's
80
been a fun
proof,
it's been a
and as
fun
long as you know that,
experience.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, listen, that's
Yeah.
that's that's a, that's exactly what I'm looking. And I can tell every time I talk to you guys, you seem
Yeah.
very excited about the product. People that we have introduced the product to have never heard of a cachaça before. So it's a
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
great
Wow.
conversational piece, and of course they want to try it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
with that being said, I'm ready to
Woohoo!
bring on
Nice.
our. I'm ready to bring on our mixologist. I'm ready to see what he can do with this. I'm excited. No one has tasted this in the world yet.
Wonderful.
We're going to do it live right here on BLN. And
Yeah,
man, come
yeah.
on! I cannot wait to do this. So I'm going to bring on our mixologist, and we're going to mix this up. A black
Do this.
cherry kiss officially.
Uh,
Stay tuned.
And cut. All right. We
My
will
man.
stop there.